Click on the arrow. Oh, it's working.
Can you hear me now? Okay, so obviously I'm new to this and we're trying to figure out Twitch and how it works and things. But this is my Planet Zoo game that I have going on. And as you can see, I've got some patrons here that are coming into the zoo. We have some activities for them. We've got a gulpy and a chef beef or chief beef. I'm still not sure what it is, but that's okay. And then we have animals here. This was just a baby that was born recently. It's a tapir. This is mom and dad, obviously. With Planet Zoo, you always want to make sure, don't make the mistake I made and forget to put out your donation boxes. Those are super important. That's pretty much how you can run your zoo, other than admission prices, but you want to keep your admission low so that people come in, but you want to have the donation boxes so they can donate to you. So that's kind of how you keep your zoo running. In here we have here we go. Lemurs. These guys are from Madagascar. And the reason I started with lemurs is because of the items that you can have in your zoo to begin with. There's not a lot of options, and so in order to give the animals the environment that they're looking for, you have to have those items. But since this is still kind of in testing, there were not a lot of options to start with, so I made sure to have enough interaction that they would be okay for a little while till I got access to those things. So that's why I started with them, and then once I got them and I got them up and going, I got access to some of these other enrichments that you see in the area. And these enrichments I knew would be good for the tapirs as well, so that that's the kind of enrichment they need. So when you come over here to see them, you will see some of those same enrichments in their area, like the forage box. So as you can see, it's super important, one, to have animals, but also to have the things that they need and want so that you keep them happy and content. And the reason you want them to be happy and content is to keep the protesters away, which we discovered in the first time playing. That's how my zoo kind of fell apart, was I started having protesters because the animals were unhappy, and then things snowballed from there. And then animals got out and it was a disaster. So you want to definitely keep your animals happy. So as you can see, I know that animal areas are pretty big. The reason why I've done that, though, is because when you're starting, animals are pretty particular about their spaces, and in order to keep them happy, they need a lot of space. So I've just erred on the side of caution and made sure that the spaces were definitely big enough for the animals. Also, you want to keep your humans happy as well, so you want to have spaces for them to not only break rooms for them to hang out with, but all of the areas that they need access to as well. If something goes horribly wrong with your animals, you will get a pop-up here that tells you that there's a serious problem. And it turns red and it alerts you and says, there's a major problem, you should probably fix it. But you can also just check generally to see how things are doing by clicking on the outside of the pens to make sure that the pens are okay, that the barriers are still in place, and that they're not running out. They do wear out over time, so you need to have your maintenance guy check on them. Um, and then obviously you always want to have food and water for your animals, so you want to make sure you have enough vets and keepers for them. The other thing is, in order to earn those enrichments for the different types of animals, you need to have your vet research different things. So, for example, I've researched ring-tailed lemurs pretty well, but as you can see, I haven't researched the tapirs as much. So I need to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to have Elizabeth work on that. So as you can see, once I put Elizabeth to work, this is going to start increasing once she goes to the area and actually starts doing her research. So that's a way that we can earn things through training, so to speak. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure, this is the other thing. This is a quick overview of, one, the animals that I have in the zoo, and two, their welfare. So you can see here that all of their welfares are pretty green, which means that my animals that I have are pretty happy, which is also great. In order to purchase new animals, there's two different kinds of currency. You have your actual monetary currency, and then you have these conservation credits, aka happy points, and you earn those by doing these things that are on this list, as far as releasing animals, selling animals, that kind of thing, or sending them to another zoo. But it's harder to get those when you first start. So when I first started, all I was doing was going to the animal trading center and picking out the animals that I wanted to start with. Again, I started with the ones that I had enrichments for. So, for example, if I go to my habitat, you can see that I don't have a ton of enrichment items, but I have a few. So you want to get animals that can go with the enrichments that you already have, so that they don't get too unhappy. So, if I go back here and see what else is available, I want to start planning for my next animal. So I need to search not by the happiness points or the conservation credits, but I need to search by money because that's what I have. So I'm going to say show cash listings. And I think my next thing that I want to get is African wild dogs. Now, these guys do need quite a bit of space, because they're more of a territory-driven creature. So because of that, when you get these, you want to make sure that you have a big enough space for them. So before I even go purchasing anything, I'm going to start working on their habitat so that I know that it will work with what I'm trying to do with the zoo. Oh, do you see how my habitat 2, the barrier status on it is lower? So I need to make sure that I have my maintenance guy go and check on that. Let's see. So we're going to say every 6 months that he needs to go do that. But since I need him to check on that now, I'm going to call him to that area to check on it for me. So anytime there's a problem, it starts turning darker colors. So if it's green, it's pretty good. If it's orange, you need to start watching out for it. And then if it's red, it's kind of a big deal. You need to hurry and get on it and figure out what's going on. So we've got this walkway. Oh, I should explain walkways. There's two different kinds of walkways in your zoo. You have the walkways that the general guests hang out on, and then you have the walkways that the keepers and the workers hang out on. And the reason why they're two different colors is because the keepers have special status in the zoo, and obviously your visitors do not. And so you, one, want to make sure that your keepers feel like they're being looked after, but you also want to make your guests feel like they are separate from the zoo staff so that they are more of an attendee to your event, not somebody who's going to actually have to take care of anything while they're there. So you do want to have the different color paths and make sure that that is in your zoo kind of ready to go. So as you can see, if I zoom out here, here's my entrance. Here's my walkway. This is a generator to power these buildings here. These buildings didn't need a generator because of how much I upgraded them to start with. So that was kind of nice. But as you can see, our zoo area for our guests is pretty small right now. If I just wanted to add a pen, I would only be adding this much to face my guests. So because of that, I definitely want to add more paths and get and have more area for the people, one, to visit, and two, to interact with the animals and see them. So I'm going to keep this stone path just because I like it. I picked it to begin with because I thought it was a little bit different, but not too different that it would upset any guests. So I'm going to go ahead and start making a path that's going to go this direction. And since I know that the wild dogs need some room, I'm going to make sure to give them that room that they need. But the other thing is I also have to have access for my keepers. And this gets really interesting because your keepers don't really want to interact with your guests. So the tendency would be want to go all the way around the back. But the farther that your people have to walk from their buildings, the more upset that they get. So I'm at the point now where I've kind of expanded this side of the zoo and I need to start expanding this other side. So I'm going to have to add more buildings to keep my people happy as well. So that's going to be a problem for a little bit later. So right now I'm going to go ahead and start working on my barrier. I'm going to start with the glass because that is quote unquote the customer facing side, right? So we are going to build some glass across the front. The other thing is you do want to pay attention to how tall the glass is depending on the animals you're putting in. So because these are wild dogs, they are carnivores. So I want to definitely keep them away from the public. So I will be increasing the size of this in a little bit. As you can see, some of the mechanics of the game kind of are a little wonky. It's harder to get things to kind of go where you want and how you want, so you kind of have to fiddle with it till you get it to do what you want. But we're gonna make this pretty big so that they have some space. And as you can see right now, I have a hole in my fence. And it's kind of hard sometimes. You kind of have to zoom in and get it to kind of do what you want. So there's that side of the fence. We're going to add this side of the fence. Ta-da! So now we do have another enclosure. However, it's only 2 meters high. And I think that's a little small for our wild dogs. So I need to drag all the way around this enclosure. And then I'm going to increase the height. And again, some of this is just trial and error. I'm going to be really honest. Like, I had to learn the hard way that this has to be done. But I think we'll do it at about 2.5 meters. Maybe we'll do 275 to be on the safe side. So I just increased the height of the whole barrier. So now we do have a space for them, but we need to have that keeper access. So I'm going to put a gate over here on this side of the habitat. And then we're going to make a keeper path and I'm going to bring this all the way over to meet my other path. Now, they're going to be a little bit unhappy with that for now, but that's not my long-term plan. My long-term plan is to set up a whole nother keeper area on this side of the zoo so that then the keepers won't have that far to go. So short term that will work. Long term it's not great. But at least we have something and we have an area and we have a way to get in there. So now you're going to ask me, well, how in the world do we know what these animals want? So what I'm going to do is I'm first going to look up the animal and see what information I can find on it. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to look for my wild dogs. And I'm going to see if there's any information I can get. And the way to get information is kind of interesting. You have to, you usually have to purchase the animal before you get that information, but you can always go to your Zoopedia, and this gives you a little bit of starting information. So, because we were looking at the wild dogs, I can't remember if they're under African. Yeah, they are under African wild dogs. So these are the African wild dogs. They're a carnivore from Africa. They are endangered. The reason they're endangered actually is because a lot of farmers, these guys will come on the farmers' lands and eat, for example, cattle or sheep and that kind of thing, because they're a predator and because they're interested in that easy game. And so a lot of farmers in Africa are killing them. And so the way that they're actually combating that in parts of Africa is to actually train some other dogs to take care of the livestock. And they actually will scare off the wild dogs because as soon as the wild dogs see another predator, they want to go after something that's easier than that. So it's a super easy way for the people in Africa, one, to not spend a lot of money, but two, be able to keep their livestock safer. And these guys respond very, very well to that because they're from the dog family. So because they're in that family, they automatically see another dog species as, oh, that's a harder thing to get through, so forget it, I won't do that. So that's a little bit about them. As we can see, this is where they live in the wild. This is their biome. They live in the savanna. So we need to pay attention to that when we're picking the different habitat features and the crops that are going to go in there. This is also important. They live to be 11 years old. And the reason why you want to look at life expectancy is when you're purchasing an animal, you don't necessarily want to purchase an animal that's 11 years old. If you want to have babies, you want to pick a younger animal. But of course, that's going to cost more money. So you want to kind of be paying attention a little bit to life expectancy. Oh, as you can see, I have a problem in my zoo. I need to find out what happened. Oh, my vet research is complete on the tapirs. So we're going to say continue and ask her to continue that. Okay, so that is going on. We're going to go back to our animal trading and Zoopedia. If it'll let me. If it doesn't go there, you can always click here to get to Zoopedia. So we're back here with the African wild dogs. Again, 11 years is their lifespan, so we want to look for something a little bit younger. As you can see the age, it also tells you when they become sterile. So as they're 10 years or older, that's when you have an older animal that's not really going to be productive. So you want to pay attention to that. As you can see, I have already unlocked some of the enrichments that they like, so that is perfect. Because then I have at least a few things to keep them somewhat content before I unlock the rest of them, so to speak. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to install some of those things in the habitat so that they are ready to go. So I'm going to put some cardboard boxes. Also, I automatically know that they're going to need shelter to sleep in. So we're going to do, I guess, a medium-sized shelter. We're going to put it back here towards the back with a larger bed. So right there, they've got some space now to sleep and rest. They also have a little bit of enrichment. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the enrichment and add a ball and add some sprinklers. And the reason I want to add some sprinklers is because that was on their list of things that they really like. Also from here, you can see the temperature of their habitat. So do you see how the tapirs have a little bit of space that's, I guess, less hot? And then the, oh my goodness, my brain's not working. The lemurs, they have little spaces as well, but they mainly like it more hot. So we're okay with being in the desert. So we have some sprinklers here going on. So that's great. Now, so we have bedding, sprinklers. We need to have water. So we're going to go to our food and water. I'm going to make them a water pipe because I like those best. They give out water continuously, and my workers don't have to fill them. They automatically are filled. It's just a non-stop water flow. So that's what I like to do. I know that these guys eat meat, but I have not figured out which bowls or troughs are needed for the different types of food. So I'm still trying to learn that. We're gonna go ahead and put in. The vet research is complete again. Let's see what we've got. So we're going to keep her going on that. So we're going to go back here and see, okay. So we're going to say that let's put in a large food bowl and see what happens. But I don't know if that's what these guys need or not. So we will find that out in a moment. So I'm going to go here to our animal trading, and we are going to try and find some of these critters to put in our zoo. So if I go here to the animal market and I change my price back to the cash listings, and then I'm going to search by species, and actually we're just going to input in here African wild dog. Okay, so we've got a male and a female, and they're both 3.3 years old, so these are great. So I'm going to go ahead and try and adopt both of these guys. And we got to adopt them, so they're now being transferred to our trade center. The trade center is where the animals you adopt, that's where they kind of go for holding before you put them in their pens for people to enjoy. So, we are going to then transfer these guys into their habitat. So we're going to move them to Habitat 4. So move to Habitat 4. So we have 2 deliveries scheduled for Habitat 4, and you can see this says Julie's Asia because that's kind of how I started the game to see what was going on with all of this. So those guys should be showing up any moment. The vet and the keepers, they're the ones who deliver the animals. So as you can see, there's one of my veterinarians running with the box to go place it into my new habitat. And then when the animal gets here, that's when we need to have the keeper come right away because they need to be fed. We need to make sure that they're happy. And these guys are usually not happy with being transported, as nobody would be. So, as you can see, welfare isn't too bad here. She's hungry and thirsty. So we need to call the keeper. So there are our 2 wild dogs in their habitat. And the reason why I only bought 2 to start is because I need to find out what kind of population they want to be in. and find out how many. When I bought the tapers, I bought 3 of them. I bought a male and 2 females because I had forgotten that they mate for life. So the male and the females were super unhappy with being in a group of 3. So I had to actually sell one of my females. So then they became a group of 2, and then that's when she got pregnant and had the baby. So here, now that we have some guys and they're in here and they're getting a little bit happier because they're drinking, I need to find out exactly what they need. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the animal, and then I need to see what exactly they need. So they said that they want processed meat and sprinklers and cardboard. The processed meat will be brought by the keepers, so that's not something I need to worry about. But we need to get some other things in their habitat to make them happy. So we're going to go to nature, and I'm going to sort by the my brain isn't working. Africa. And then I also want to search, I believe it's the desert biome, but I'm not 100% sure. Actually, it might not be. Let's try the grasslands. That looks more right. Or looks more correct, sorry. So let's see. We're going to put a tree in here. And then we're going to see how that animal reacts to that tree. As you can see, they're super hungry. So I asked the keeper to come, and hopefully he will come and feed them soon so they won't be as unhappy. Do you see how when I click on the tree, it tells me what biome it's from? So it tells me it's temperate and then it's grasslands. And we know that these guys are from the grasslands. So that's sort of what they're looking for. I'm going to put a baobab tree in here and see if that makes them happier. Let's see. So that does belong, it says that it belongs to their biome. They seem pretty happy, but if I go in here to environment, it'll tell me exactly what they're looking for. So if I go to coverage and plants, I can see, okay, well, they're somewhat happy with this, but they want more coverage. So we need to make sure to give them more plants to hide in. So let's see what else we can do. So I try and do things that are, one, pretty for the people to look at and interesting for them to look at, but also are interesting for my animals. So you always want to be looking to make sure that this belongs in their habitat. Do you see how the baobab tree is at 10%? That's because that makes them a lot happier than these other things. So you always want to make sure that you're kind of looking at that to give them what they want. So let's see what else we can give them. Oh, they didn't like that. That was not a good one. So we are going to delete that one from their habitat. It did not belong there. Let's see. Oh. Okay, so one of my tapers is not doing so well. It's my baby, and he says that he needs more social activity. So we need to call the keeper here and make sure that he gets what he needs. He is stressed out. It looks like he got too hot because, as you can see, he's now laying down and his stress is going down. So we need to make sure that this area is perfect for them. So I'm going to click on their habitat and go to their environment and see what's going on. It looks like they want to be a little, they might need some more coverage here. So let's put another tree in here and see if that makes this little dude happy. Okay, vet research is done, so we're gonna go look at that. It looks like she might almost be done with this level, which is great. I'm not gonna have the other person research this right now, and the reason why is because I want to have a vet in case something goes wrong. If you have all of your vets doing research and then something goes wrong in your zoo and an animal gets hurt, they will not just drop their research and go help the animal. They will try and finish their research first. So I always want to have at least one vet that's available to help in an animal emergency. Luckily, those don't happen very often, but it does happen, especially with more carnivores. Especially with wolves, they seem to get hurt quite a bit. I've tried to have wolves in the past, and they just get hurt a lot. So you almost have to have, I feel, a person, a vet, dedicated directly to them so that they're happier. So, we're going to call the mechanic because their barrier status isn't doing great either. Oh, the reason why we don't have people coming, let me pause this and explain this. So, the reason why no one is coming here to take care of these animals for me and they're still hungry and not happy is because I forgot to add this habitat to the area that needs to be worked. You do that by going to your zoo and going to your facilities. No, I'm sorry, going to your staff. And then you have to add your work zones. So we need to actually say that we need to edit this work zone. And we need to add these spaces to those work zones so that we have those people that will now check on those areas. So once I have this edited, it now updated that with those new areas so that my staff then actually has those on record to be worked. I know that sounds ridiculous, but think about it. If you're adding on to your zoo, you have to tell your workers, this is your area as well, you need to work on it. So now that we've done that, we will actually have keepers and a mechanic running, as you can see, to take care of that area and those animals. So let's see what else we've got going on. Oh, I forgot to put down the donation buckets, so we need to definitely add that. Let's see. Here are those donation buckets. You want to add them in places where it's obvious and also places where it's not as obvious. And what I mean by that is, yes, you have them right here alongside of here, but you also want to put them in your atrium as well so that people do have the opportunity to donate as they leave or come into your zoo. So make sure to kind of put them spread out, but also make sure to have them at your entrance. So now that we've got those donation buckets, those should have some income coming in now. And we need to see what kind of group these guys need. So I need to try and find one of them to click on. So they're not great with their habitat. They don't like their terrain. So we need to figure out what kind of terrain they do want. So we're going to go here to terrain, and we see that they need one more soil, one more grass, and yeah, so they need a lot of different things. So we're going to go ahead and work on that next. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to say that we need to have long grass in all of this area. And then I'm going to say we need short grass. And then we're going to add some soil. And this obviously changes what they want. So you have to make sure to keep everything kind of in balance.
You're doing the wrong one. You need short.
Okay. So now you can see that their terrain is more in what they're actually looking for. So they're going to be a little bit happier with that. Um, they still are not happy with the coverage that they have. So we need to change that.
It's too high.
So let's see. I'm going to go here to my animal and see what is going on. So they need enrichment. Okay, so they got their nutrition, they've been fed, but they don't have enough enrichment. So we need to give them some more. I'm going to see what's going on with this. The vet looks like they finished their research. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and stop this research, and I am going to switch over to our African wild dog and get her to start researching them because we need to get them more enrichment, and I don't have very many options for them yet. So we're going to add another sprinkler in the meantime. Which I think will help, but it still isn't exactly what we need. So if I go to my Zoopedia and see, I still haven't unlocked anything else that they need. So because of that, we definitely need to be researching them to figure out what else they need and to earn those items.
Don't make your video forever long.
So that's a little bit of Planet Zoo, and that was introducing a new animal and a new habitat to the zoo, as well as taking care of your patrons a little bit. So that's all I'm going to do for today. I guess I will talk to you guys later. Have a good one.